The quaint town of Ashton was the epitome of tranquility. Its inhabitants, known for their warmth and neighborly spirit, believed their peaceful existence would last forever. Then came the shocking news that shattered their idyllic world. A brutal murder had stained Ashton's pristine streets. Fear and disbelief gripped the community as everyone anxiously awaited the capture of the perpetrator. The authorities acted swiftly, apprehending a suspect within days. A drifter named Jack, a man with a haunted past and piercing eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories. Jack vehemently denied the charges, proclaiming his innocence with a desperate fervor. But the evidence against him was substantial, leaving little room for doubt in the minds of the townsfolk. He was incarcerated in Ashton's small, antiquated jail, awaiting trial. Overseeing the jail was Warden Susan Taylor, a woman known for her unwavering dedication to justice and her steadfast adherence to the law. For years, she had guarded Ashton's peace, her stern demeanor and resolute gaze deterring even the most hardened criminals. Yet, beneath her tough exterior lay a compassionate heart, troubled by the grim realities of the world she swore to protect. Jack's case weighed heavily on Warden Taylor. His insistent claims of innocence, coupled with the desperation in his eyes, stirred something within her. She couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. This case, unlike any other she had encountered, began to chip away at her certainty, planting the seeds of doubt in her usually unwavering mind. Little did she know that this case would lead her down a path she could never have foreseen. A path that would test the very core of her beliefs and challenge the very fabric of Ashton's existence. Days turned into weeks, each sunrise bringing Jack closer to his trial. From his cramped cell, he could hear the distant hum of the town, a stark contrast to the suffocating silence of his confinement. His only solace was the brief moments of human interaction during mealtimes and the occasional visits from his lawyer. The lawyer, a young and ambitious man named David, believed in Jack's innocence. He valiantly fought for his client, meticulously examining the evidence and seeking any loophole that could shatter the prosecution's case. Warden Taylor, despite her demanding duties, found herself inexplicably drawn to Jack's cell. She would often pause during her rounds, engaging in brief conversations with the accused murderer. Her initial curiosity gradually morphed into something more profound. Jack, stripped of his freedom and facing a bleak future, spoke with an eloquence that belied his rough exterior. He shared his regrets, his dreams, and his unwavering hope for a future that seemed to be slipping away with each passing moment. These conversations, initially formal and guarded, slowly blossomed into an unlikely camaraderie. Warden Taylor found herself looking forward to their interactions, Jack's words offering a glimpse into a world far removed from the structured confines of her existence. Jack, starved for human connection, saw in Warden Taylor a glimmer of hope, someone who listened without judgment and offered a flicker of empathy in the face of his despair. The bond between them deepened with each passing day, bridging the chasm between their vastly different worlds. Warden Taylor, the stalwart guardian of justice, and Jack, the accused murderer facing a grim fate, found solace in their shared moments of vulnerability. They were two souls, bound by an unlikely connection, on a collision course with destiny, unaware of the tumultuous journey that lay ahead. As Warden Taylor spent more time with Jack, a nagging question gnawed at her conscience. Was she truly looking at a cold-blooded killer? The evidence presented a damning picture, yet Jack's demeanor, his words, and his eyes hinted at a truth buried beneath layers of assumptions and circumstantial evidence. The seed of doubt, planted by their conversations, began to sprout, fueled by her growing empathy and her instinctive mistrust of the seemingly perfect narrative presented by the prosecution. Driven by her mounting unease, Warden Taylor started her own investigation. She meticulously reviewed the case files, scrutinizing every detail, every witness testimony, every piece of evidence. She visited the crime scene, immersing herself in the environment where the life of a fellow human being had been brutally extinguished. The more she delved into the intricacies of the case, the more convinced she became that something wasn't right. Discrepancies, initially subtle and easily overlooked, began to emerge. Witness testimonies, though seemingly consistent, contained inconsistencies that hinted at potential manipulation or coercion. The timeline of events, meticulously constructed by the prosecution, had gaps, subtle yet significant enough to cast doubt on the entire narrative. Warden Taylor, her heart pounding with a mix of trepidation and determination, realized that the case against Jack, though seemingly airtight, was built on a foundation of shaky assumptions and convenient omissions. The weight of her discovery pressed down on her. She was torn between her duty to uphold the law and her growing belief in Jack's innocence. The system she had served with unwavering loyalty now appeared flawed, capable of perpetuating injustice under the guise of righteous prosecution. The very foundations of her world, her unwavering faith in the justice system, were shaken to their core. She knew she had a choice to make, a choice that would have far-reaching consequences, not only for herself and Jack, but for the very soul of Ashton. Warden Taylor grappled with her newfound knowledge. The evidence, or rather the lack of concrete evidence, whispered of a conspiracy, a deliberate framing of an innocent man. She couldn't ignore her conscience. Her sense of justice, the core of her being, demanded action. But what could she do? She was a lone woman, a cog in a vast machine designed to grind relentlessly towards a predetermined outcome. She sought solace in her conversations with Jack. Their shared moments of vulnerability had forged a bond of trust, a silent understanding that transcended their respective roles. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows across the prison yard, Warden Taylor, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve, confided in Jack. She revealed her doubts, her suspicion of a sinister plot designed to ensure his conviction. Jack listened intently, his eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight in his cell. He had long given up hope, resigning himself to the cruel whims of fate. But Warden Taylor's words rekindled a flicker of hope, a belief that perhaps justice could prevail, even in the face of overwhelming odds. He knew he couldn't fight this battle alone. He needed an ally, someone on the inside, someone who believed in his innocence as fiercely as he did. In that dimly lit cell, a pact was forged. Warden Taylor, driven by her unwavering conscience, vowed to help Jack escape. It was a decision fraught with risk, a betrayal of her oath, a dangerous gamble that could cost her everything. But in that moment, the pursuit of truth and justice eclipsed all other considerations. She would face the consequences, whatever they may be, for she could no longer be complicit in a system that punished the innocent. The decision was made. The die was cast. Warden Taylor and Jack now faced the daunting task of planning an escape from a prison that had stood for decades, its walls seemingly impervious to such audacious attempts. They had to be meticulous, for their lives depended on the success of their clandestine operation. They had to exploit weaknesses in the prison's structure and routine, weaknesses only someone with intimate knowledge of its inner workings could identify. Warden Taylor, utilizing her years of experience, began to analyze the prison's security protocols, searching for vulnerabilities. She studied the guard rotations, the surveillance blind spots, the antiquated locking mechanisms, and the predictable rhythm of prison life. She drew detailed schematics of the prison layout, marking potential escape routes, points of vulnerability, and areas where they could exploit the guards' routines. Jack, with his keen eye for detail and his street smarts, contributed to the plan. He suggested ways to create diversions, distract guards, and manipulate the limited resources available to them within the confines of his cell. He proposed a schedule, meticulously timed to coincide with the guards' shift changes, meal breaks, and nightly patrols. Their plan, audacious in its simplicity, relied on perfect timing, unwavering trust, and a healthy dose of luck. Every night, under the cloak of darkness, they whispered through the food slot in Jack's cell door, refining their plan, anticipating potential obstacles, and preparing for every eventuality. Their unlikely partnership, forged in the crucible of desperation and fueled by a shared belief in justice, blossomed into a formidable force. They were two minds working in unison, their individual strengths complementing each other, their shared goal driving them towards a daring escape from the clutches of an unjust system. The night of the escape arrived, shrouded in an eerie silence. The air hung heavy with anticipation, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension. Warden Taylor, her heart pounding in her chest, made her rounds, her demeanor calm and composed, masking the turmoil raging within her. She exchanged knowing glances with Jack as she passed his cell, a silent confirmation of their shared purpose. As the clock struck midnight, the prison settled into its nightly slumber. The guards, lulled by the monotonous routine, relaxed their vigilance, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Warden Taylor, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, made her move. She disabled the surveillance cameras, exploiting a blind spot she had identified during her meticulous planning. Jack, following their carefully orchestrated plan, used a makeshift tool fashioned from a toothbrush and a sharpened spoon to pick the lock of his cell door. He slipped out into the dimly lit corridor, his movements swift and silent, a ghost navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. The air crackled with tension as he made his way towards the predetermined meeting point, his every step a gamble against the odds. Warden Taylor, her heart pounding in her chest, waited anxiously at the designated spot, a small, secluded storage room near the back gate. She had disabled the alarm system, her knowledge of the prison's security protocols proving invaluable. Moments later, Jack emerged from the shadows, his face etched with a mixture of relief and apprehension. Their eyes met in a shared moment of triumph, their daring plan successfully executed. They had breached the walls of the prison, but their escape was far from over. The real challenge lay ahead, a desperate flight for freedom with the hounds of justice snapping at their heels. News of the jailbreak ripped through Ashton like a wildfire, shattering the town's tranquility. The audacity of the escape, the fact that a trusted warden had orchestrated it, sent shockwaves through the community. Sheriff Brown, a grizzled veteran with a reputation for tenacity, swore to hunt down the fugitives and bring them to justice. He mobilized his deputies, setting up roadblocks, combing through forests, and launching a nationwide manhunt. Warden Taylor and Jack, now fugitives on the run, knew they had to disappear, to vanish into the vast expanse of the American landscape. They stole a car, a nondescript sedan, and drove through the night, guided by the stars and fueled by adrenaline. They moved from town to town, staying off the main roads, avoiding contact with the outside world, their every move shadowed by fear and uncertainty. The radio blared news of their escape, their faces plastered on wanted posters across the country. The media frenzy surrounding their daring escape amplified the pressure, turning their flight into a spectacle, a real-life thriller unfolding on a national stage. They were no longer just fugitives. They were symbols, their actions sparking debates about justice, morality, and the fallibility of the system they had dared to challenge. The relentless pursuit took its toll. Sleep became a luxury, food a necessity hastily consumed, and trust their only currency. They were bound together by their shared predicament, their fates intertwined. Their survival depended on their ability to outsmart and outrun the forces closing in on them. Their journey was a testament to human resilience, a desperate dance on the edge of a razor, a race against time with freedom as the ultimate prize. Days turned into weeks, the relentless pursuit taking its toll. Warden Taylor and Jack, weary from their constant flight, found themselves trapped in a small town near the Canadian border. Their resources dwindling, their options limited, they sought refuge in a dilapidated motel on the outskirts of town, a place forgotten by time and overlooked by the prying eyes of the law. Their haven proved to be their undoing. A motel guest, recognizing them from the ubiquitous wanted posters, alerted the authorities. Sheriff Brown, his determination fueled by weeks of frustration, descended upon the motel with a small army of deputies, their vehicles surrounding the building, cutting off any possibility of escape. The net was closing in, the long arm of the law poised to snatch back its quarry. Warden, Taylor, and Jack, their hearts sinking as they heard the sirens approaching, knew their time was running out. They were trapped, cornered like animals, their desperate flight nearing its dramatic conclusion. They considered making a run for it, but the sheer number of officers surrounding the motel made such an attempt futile. Surrender seemed inevitable, the weight of their choices crushing down on them. They stood by the window, peering through the tattered curtains at the spectacle unfolding outside. The flashing lights of the police cars painted eerie patterns on the motel walls, creating a surreal atmosphere of impending doom. They had come so far, endured so much, only to be cornered, their dreams of freedom shattered against the unyielding wall of the law. Their hearts pounded in unison, their breaths shallow and rapid, their minds racing, desperately searching for a way out of their predicament. Sheriff Brown, his voice amplified by a megaphone, ordered them to surrender. His words boomed through the night, reverberating through the motel walls, a stark reminder of the overwhelming force arrayed against them. He offered them a chance to come out peacefully, promising a fair trial, appealing to their sense of reason, reminding them of the futility of resistance. Warden Taylor and Jack exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. They knew they couldn't escape. They were outgunned, outnumbered, their options exhausted. But surrender, a return to the system they had defied, felt like a betrayal of their principles, a defeat that would invalidate their struggle for justice. They decided to make their stand. It wasn't about winning, it was about making a statement, about highlighting the flaws in the system they had challenged, about using their final moments to expose the truth they believed in. They barricaded the motel room door, using whatever furniture they could find, creating a makeshift fortress against the impending assault. The standoff stretched through the night, a tense silence punctuated by the occasional barked orders from Sheriff Brown and the muffled sounds of police activity outside. Inside the motel room, Warden Taylor and Jack shared their final moments, reminiscing about their journey, reaffirming their belief in their cause, finding solace in their shared defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. They knew this was the end, their last stand against a system they believed was rigged against them, their desperate attempt to control the narrative of their own demise. As dawn broke, casting a pale light on the tense scene, Sheriff Brown, his patience exhausted, ordered his team to storm the motel room. The sound of splintering wood shattered the tense silence as the officers breached the barricade, their weapons drawn, their movements swift and precise. The standoff was over, the fugitives apprehended, their flight for freedom brought to an abrupt and unceremonious end. Warden Taylor and Jack, their faces etched with exhaustion and resignation, offered no resistance. They were handcuffed, led out of the motel room, and paraded in front of the assembled media, their faces illuminated by the harsh glare of camera flashes. Their capture a spectacle broadcast across the nation. Their audacious escape, their weeks on the run, had come to an end. Their story reduced to a sensationalized headline, their motives scrutinized and debated by talking heads on countless news channels. The trial was swift, the evidence against them overwhelming. Warden Taylor and Jack, despite their lawyers' valiant efforts, were found guilty. She was stripped of her rank, her career in law enforcement shattered, her reputation tarnished. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, his hopes of proving his innocence dashed against the unyielding wall of the legal system. The system they had challenged had reasserted its dominance, their act of defiance seemingly quelled. But their story didn't end there. Their actions, their desperate flight for freedom, had ignited a spark, a conversation about justice, about the presumption of innocence, about the power dynamics inherent in the legal system. Their case became a rallying cry for reform, a symbol of the need for greater transparency and accountability in the pursuit of justice. Their story, though ending in defeat, served as a catalyst for change, a testament to the enduring human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the fight for truth and justice never truly ends. The Ashton Jailbreak, a tale of an unlikely partnership, a desperate flight for freedom, and a final stand against the forces of law and order, left an indelible mark on the town and its people. It shattered their illusions of tranquility, exposed the vulnerabilities of their institutions, and forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about the system they relied upon to maintain order and dispense justice. The story of Warden Taylor and Jack serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even those sworn to uphold the law can be swayed by their convictions, that the pursuit of justice can sometimes lead down a treacherous path, that the lines between right and wrong can become blurred in the face of moral dilemmas. Their actions, though ultimately condemned by the courts, sparked a dialogue, a debate about the very foundations of justice, about the presumption of innocence, and about the power dynamics that can undermine the pursuit of truth. The Jailbreak, a dramatic chapter in Ashton's history, serves as a potent reminder of the complexities of human behavior, the fragility of trust, and the enduring power of the human spirit to challenge the status quo. It is a story that continues to resonate, prompting reflection on the delicate balance between order and freedom, between the pursuit of justice and the preservation of individual rights. It is a story that reminds us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the human spirit can find the strength to stand up for what it believes in, to fight for a better tomorrow, to challenge the very systems designed to confine and control.